The sun was setting over the floating city of Arvath, casting long orange shadows across the high towers and glimmering sky bridges. From above, the city seemed peaceful, elegant even, but beneath its polished surface, tension simmered. The kingdom had always been a place of order and rules, a society where strength, discipline, and loyalty mattered above all. And in the heart of this order, Princess Liara was a problem. She had always been different. While the other young nobles followed the rigid traditions of the kingdom, Liara questioned them. She refused to sit quietly during the council meetings, refused to let her tutors shape her into a perfect image of obedience. The king, her father, had watched her for years, his patience thinning, unsure whether her behavior was a phase or a sign of rebellion. To him, she was reckless, unpredictable, and perhaps even dangerous. On this evening, Liara stood on the edge of a training terrace high above the city, her black hair whipped by the wind. Her eyes followed the glint of a drone as it zipped across the sky, testing her reflexes. She moved swiftly, her limbs fluid and precise as she leaped, dodged, and countered. This was her secret. While the kingdom expected her to be a princess, she trained as a warrior, honing her skills in ways that were forbidden. Every strike, every movement had a purpose. Every motion was a silent protest against the life the king demanded of her. Unbeknownst to her, far below in the lower courts of Arvath, a human had just arrived. Captain Elias stepped off his transport, his boots clicking on the metal floor. He was tall, lean, and moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen battles across distant worlds. Humans were rare in Arvath, and he had been received with polite curiosity. He carried no weapons openly, but his presence alone was enough to draw attention. His mission was diplomatic, to observe, advise, and, if necessary, assist the kingdom. But Elias had seen enough worlds to know that real strength often hid beneath appearances. The first time he saw Liara, it was during the trial of young warriors. The courtyard was crowded, filled with nobles, guards, and citizens watching as the candidates tested themselves in combat simulations. Liara moved among them, her motions elegant yet precise, yet she wasn't following the standard drills. Instead, she improvised, testing her opponents in ways no instructor had taught her. Others called her defiant, a nuisance, a problem the king should address. Elias, however, saw something different. He saw talent, discipline, and courage, the hallmarks of a warrior who could surpass any obstacle. During the trial, Liara faced a larger, stronger opponent. He rushed at her with a mechanical staff, expecting her to falter. But she didn't. She ducked, rolled, and used his momentum against him, flipping him to the ground with a swift, controlled movement. The crowd gasped. Some whispered that she had cheated. Others said she was too reckless. But Elias simply nodded to himself. He recognized instinct, intuition, and intelligence. She wasn't a problem. She was a warrior. Later that evening, as the city lights began to glow and the floating bridges reflected 1,000 tiny stars, Elias found his way to a quiet courtyard where Liara often trained alone. He watched her from the shadows, noting her technique, her focus, and the quiet determination in her eyes. Finally, he stepped forward. "You move differently than the others," he said quietly. Liara turned sharply, startled. Her hand went to the hilt of her hidden training blade, but she relaxed slightly when she saw he posed no threat. "I move as I must," she replied, her voice firm but calm. "The others follow rules. I follow skill." Elias smiled faintly. "I can see that. I also see a king who believes you are a problem. Tell me, princess, does he know what you are capable of?" Liara's eyes narrowed. "He thinks I am reckless, that I cannot control my power. He does not understand." "Then perhaps I can help," Elias said. He didn't offer guidance in a condescending way. Instead, he spoke as one who had fought countless battles, someone who recognized raw talent and knew how to refine it. "I can teach you to combine your skill with strategy, to make every move count not just against training opponents but against real threats." Liara studied him carefully. She had been alone in her secret training for so long, hiding her abilities, doubting whether anyone could truly understand her. Yet in Elias she saw no judgment, no expectation to conform. He saw her as she was, capable, intelligent, and ready. "Why would a human care?" she asked, her voice cautious. "Because I see potential," he replied simply. "And potential should never be wasted." They began meeting in secret, under the cover of night. Elias taught her tactics humans had used across galaxies, maneuvers, formations, traps, and strategies. Liara adapted quickly, blending her alien agility and reflexes with his lessons. She was a quick learner, but more than that, she was creative. Where Elias suggested a formation, she improved it. Where he saw a weakness, she exploited it. Their partnership grew, quiet and unspoken, rooted in mutual respect. Meanwhile, the king's worries grew. He noticed changes in Liara's behavior, her confidence, her refusal to bow to convention, her sharp mind and sharper reflexes. He summoned advisors and generals to discuss how to rein her in. "She must learn obedience," he insisted, "or she will endanger this kingdom." Yet every plan to constrain her failed, for Liara had learned to move not just with strength, but with cunning. The king could not predict her choices, and that frightened him more than any enemy could. One night, the city's surveillance drones picked up unusual activity in the skies. A fleet of alien mercenaries previously unknown was approaching the kingdom. They moved swiftly, their ships dark and fast, evading the early warning sensors. The council was in panic. The king ordered all defenses to full alert. But the mercenaries' speed and unpredictability meant that conventional strategies might fail. Liara watched the alerts from her private training room. She could feel the tension in the city, the fear spreading among soldiers unprepared for this level of threat, yet she did not feel fear herself. She felt readiness. And beside her, Elias stood silently, observing her. "You are ready for this," he said softly. "But will the kingdom be ready for you?" Liara's eyes shone with determination. "They will have no choice but to see what I am capable of. If they underestimate me, it will be their mistake." As the mercenary fleet neared, the king addressed his generals. He gave orders, his voice tight with tension, but even he noticed the spark of independence in his daughter. He wanted to restrain her, to force her into safety, but he also knew she would not be contained. The night before the battle, Liara and Elias trained until exhaustion. Each strike, each maneuver, each tactical decision was honed to perfection. They worked in silence, speaking only when necessary, a rhythm of understanding forming between them. Liara's skill had grown beyond any traditional warrior's, and her mind was sharper than ever, anticipating moves before they happened. Finally, she stood on the highest terrace, looking at the stars and the approaching threat. She felt no fear, only purpose. She had been judged a problem all her life, misunderstood and underestimated. But now, with Elias's guidance, she felt the full weight of her potential. She was not just a princess. She was a warrior, ready to defend her home and prove that strength could come in unexpected forms. As the first alien ships appeared on the horizon, glowing red against the night sky, Liara turned to Elias. "Tomorrow, we show them who we truly are," she said. Elias nodded. "And maybe, just maybe, your father will see it too." The city, below, braced itself, unaware that the princess they had dismissed as a problem was preparing to become the key to their survival. Liara, once underestimated, was about to step into a role no one had imagined. Warrior, leader, and beacon of hope for a kingdom that had always valued rules over courage. The night grew darker, the wind sharper, and the stars seemed to watch silently as Liara prepared for what would be the first of many tests. For the first time, she felt truly understood, truly capable. And as the mercenary fleet drew closer, she knew that her moment had come. She was no problem. She was the future. The morning air was tense and sharp as the first light of Arvath's twin suns glinted off the metal surfaces of the city's defenses. Soldiers scrambled across the sky bridges, adjusting energy shields and loading plasma rifles. Drones hummed overhead, scanning the approaching mercenary fleet. In the Royal Command Center, The king watched every movement, his expression a mixture of anxiety and doubt. He had always believed strength came from control, from adherence to tradition, but now, as he saw his daughter ready herself, he felt uncertainty. Perhaps he had underestimated her all along. Liara stood on the highest terrace, overlooking the city and the distant horizon, where the enemy ships grew larger with every passing minute. Beside her, Elias adjusted the targeting module on a small tactical console. Despite the chaos around them, he remained calm, as if predicting every possible outcome. Liara felt a surge of confidence. Under his guidance, her mind had grown sharper, her instincts keener. The lessons they had shared in secret training now had a purpose. "Are you ready?" Elias asked quietly. Liara nodded, her dark eyes focused on the distant ships. "I was born ready. I just didn't know it yet." The mercenary fleet was fast, far faster than the city's early warning drones had anticipated. Their ships moved in irregular patterns, attempting to bypass the outer defenses. Arvath's gunners fired volleys of plasma, and automated shields shimmered under the attack, but the invaders were relentless. A sense of urgency filled the city. "Elias, we need a plan that uses speed and precision," Liara said, her voice steady. "We cannot rely on the king's formations. They are too slow, too rigid." Elias smiled faintly. "Exactly. We'll fight smart, not just strong." They moved to the command deck where Liara took the lead, issuing orders with authority and clarity. Her voice carried over the comm systems, directing squads with precision. Soldiers who had been hesitant, confused, or scared now moved with purpose, trusting her instincts. Even those who had mocked her defiance began to follow her guidance. The first wave of mercenaries reached the outer perimeter. Their ships unleashed energy beams that struck the city's defenses, creating fiery explosions that sent shockwaves through the floating towers. Liara and Elias watched carefully, analyzing the enemy's patterns. "They are predictable," Liara said, her mind racing. "They repeat the same sequences when under pressure." "We can use that," Elias nodded. "I've seen this before. If we lure them into a trap, we can neutralize half their fleet before they even reach the city." Together they devised a risky plan. Liara would lead a small team of elite fighters to intercept the fleet in the upper atmosphere, using high-speed maneuvers and stealth techniques. Meanwhile, Elias would coordinate the city's defenses, ensuring that the main force could handle whatever slipped past. It was dangerous. Failure would mean disaster, but neither of them hesitated. The moment came. Liara and her team launched from the city's upper platform, their ships weaving through the clouds with unmatched agility. The mercenaries pursued, unaware that they were being drawn into a trap. Liara's instincts guided every turn, every dive, and every attack. She moved like a shadow, striking swiftly and retreating before the enemy could counter. Her small squad struck with precision, targeting key ships and creating confusion among the invaders. The mercenaries had expected predictable defense lines, but instead they faced a force that was fast, intelligent, and unpredictable. Liara's leadership and combat skill became immediately apparent. Back in the city, Elias coordinated reinforcements, guiding ground units and energy cannons to support Liara's team. He adapted to the mercenaries' movements, predicting their strategy and countering it. The combination of human tactics and Liara's instinctive skill created a synergy that neither the invaders nor the king had anticipated. The battle intensified. Explosions lit the skies as ships collided, shields flared, and soldiers fought fiercely. Liara led her team through a particularly dangerous sector, where the enemy had concentrated its firepower. With a swift series of maneuvers, she disabled several enemy ships, turning their own weapons against them. Her movements were fluid, almost artistic, but deadly in effect. Each decision, each attack demonstrated not just her strength but her intelligence and foresight. On the ground, the king watched the reports coming in. He saw his daughter in action, witnessing her lead, inspire, and fight with unmatched skill. For the first time, he felt a mixture of awe and shame. He had judged her as a problem, but now, in the midst of battle, he realized he had been wrong. Liara was not a threat. She was a savior. Hours passed as the battle raged. Liara and Elias continued to coordinate, moving seamlessly between offensive and defensive strategies. The mercenary fleet began to falter, their formations breaking as confusion spread. Soldiers on the ground, seeing Liara's success, fought with renewed energy. The tide of the battle shifted. Finally, Liara confronted the enemy commander directly. His ship was massive, armed with heavy weapons and advanced shields. Many had feared it would be the turning point, the moment when Arvath might fall. But Liara remained calm. She studied the ship's movements, noting its weaknesses and the patterns in its attacks. With precise timing, she executed a daring maneuver. Her ship weaved through the commander's fire, approaching from an unexpected angle. She fired a concentrated energy pulse at the ship's critical systems. There was a moment of tense silence before the commander's ship erupted in a controlled explosion, sending debris scattering across the skies. The remaining mercenary ships, leaderless and disoriented, began to retreat. Arvath's forces pursued cautiously, but the battle was effectively won. Soldiers cheered, drones hovered in victory, and the city's lights glowed brighter as alarms sounded the all-clear. Liara's ship returned to the city, gliding onto the platform with smooth precision. Ilias met her there, his face lighting up with approval. "You did it," he said simply. "You were incredible." Liara exhaled, a mixture of relief and triumph flooding through her. "We did it," she corrected, acknowledging the teamwork that had been essential to their success. The king descended to the platform, moving carefully through the cheering soldiers. When he reached Liara, he looked at her not with fear or doubt, but with a new understanding. "I misjudged you," he said quietly, almost to himself. "I thought you were a problem. I was wrong. You are a warrior." Liara met his gaze. She felt no triumph in his words, only recognition. "Thank you, Father. But this victory is not mine alone. We fought together. Humans and aliens side by side, using strength and strategy." The king nodded slowly. He realized that his kingdom had relied too heavily on tradition and control, underestimating the power of creativity, courage, and partnership. He placed a hand on her shoulder, an acknowledgement that he had finally accepted her fully, not as a rebellious daughter, but as a capable leader. In the days following the battle, Arvath rebuilt its defenses and strengthened its fleet. Liara continued to train and teach, now openly, combining human tactics with alien skill, preparing the kingdom for any future threats. Soldiers who had once doubted her became her students, inspired by her courage and intelligence. Elias was offered a position in the royal council as a strategic advisor. He accepted not for power or honor, but to continue working alongside Liara, mentoring and learning together. Their bond became a symbol of unity between species, showing that cooperation could achieve what tradition alone could not. Liara's reputation grew, not just as a warrior but as a leader who valued skill, insight, and courage over rigid rules. The city thrived under her guidance, and the king learned to trust his daughter's instincts, understanding that leadership was not about control, but about recognizing and nurturing potential. One evening, as the twin suns set over Arvath, Liara and Elias stood on the terrace watching the calm city below. The battle was over, but the lessons remained. Strength, courage, and intelligence could come from unexpected places. Partnerships could bridge worlds, and those who had been underestimated could rise to become heroes. Liara turned to Elias. "Do you think the kingdom will ever see strength the way we do?" Elias smiled. "I think they already have, thanks to you. And tomorrow they will see even more." Liara's eyes reflected the fading sunlight. She felt hope, determination, and purpose. She had been called a problem all her life, judged unfairly by those who could not see her potential. Now she knew her true power. She was a warrior, a leader, and a symbol of what could be achieved when courage and skill met understanding and trust. As the stars began to appear, Arvath glimmered with the promise of a new era, one where strength was measured not just by tradition, but by vision, creativity, and the bravery to stand against the impossible. Liara had proven herself not for recognition, but because she believed in what she could achieve. And in doing so, she had changed her kingdom forever. The princess who had once been seen as a problem was now the warrior who could lead a world into its future.